And so we're recording this. Really glad you guys are here. You'll hear from several entrepreneurs today about conscious entrepreneurship. And Shiftco considers itself at the heart of this movement. And, you know, I want to start first with, rather than introducing myself per se, I want to just talk a little bit about my own awakening as it relates to being a conscious entrepreneur, because a lot of the insights that I have about this space really came from this journey. And it was in early 2008, I had a consulting firm that had about 40 consultants in it. It was about 7 million in revenue. It was very profitable, very successful. And I decided to sell it in February, March of 2008. Again, great hindsight. But I didn't sell it because I knew the economic crisis of 2008 was coming. I sold it because I wasn't happy. I had built a business that, although I was very successful at it and I was making a ton of money, I wasn't happy. And that really began my journey as a conscious entrepreneur. And so I shut that business down in 2008, sold it off into pieces, and started over in essence. And I created a new brand called Succeed on Purpose. And this idea of Succeed on Purpose was that there has to be more. And again, at the time, I wasn't exactly sure the economic crisis of 2008 was going to be as big as it was, but I knew I wasn't happy, and I knew I had to do something different. And I started this idea, you know, Succeed on Purpose was more of an idea when it started, that we turned into a business, that there has to be more to life. And I want to do something that is both meaningful, but also financially successful. I did not believe that I had to trade off meaning for money, purpose for profit. I wanted to find a way to do both. And that was a genesis of my journey into conscious entrepreneurship, is this idea that you could do both, with that being the first brand. Over time, in those first 2 years, I really struggled. And I struggled because of the old ways of thinking about entrepreneurship and business, and also this new way where the path wasn't as clear as it is today. And the first thing I struggled with was, it just felt like the business had a life of its own. And I was used to decide, plan, act, adjust, put a strategy in place, go to market. And it just seemed like the more I tried to control my business, the more difficult it was, and that it really had a life of its own. And that's the first thing that I want to say about conscious entrepreneurship. Regardless of where you are on your journey, the business has a life of its own. It's like a child. If you've ever tried to control your child, it's not an easy thing to do. And that's one of the things that's really different about conscious entrepreneurship, is the business has a life of its own, and you're really here to shepherd it and wrap some business strategy around it, but it really does have a life of its own. And you've got to get comfortable with the fact that it's really about alignment in where that business is destined to go. The other thing that I noticed is I felt very much alone. A lot of my serial entrepreneur friends and private equity friends thought I was nuts when I sold my business and started over and started this loosey-goosey, woo-woo-y thing called Succeed on Purpose. They thought I was nuts. But I could not get out of my DNA this fact that I just believed there had to be more, and that I wanted to do something meaningful that mattered, but also something that was financially successful. But I felt very much alone in that process. And then the third thing that was most fascinating to me, because I was known as a business growth guru, companies hired me, big companies, medium-sized companies hired me and my company to grow them. And a lot of the techniques that I had used for decades didn't work. And those were my first big observations about conscious entrepreneurship. For those of you that now know you're a conscious entrepreneur, I'd love for you to join in the conversation in the chat and just share some of your observations. We're going to go a little bit deeper with some of the guests that I brought together for you, but I'd love to hear some of the observations that you have about your journey. But these were the three that really hit me over the head. And as people are putting their observations in the chat box, what happened next is in 2010-11 period, I decided to really grow my idea. And keep in mind, I was far from successful at the time. And so we began a pivot. And the first pivot was turning Succeed on Purpose into a portfolio, kind of like a purposeful Shark Tank. And we built this idea of meaningful money. How do I make money and do work that matters? And as a result of that, we developed two things, what we call the cultivator. And the cultivator builds game-changing brands that make the world better. And then the speculator, we take a portion of our profits and then we invest in conscious businesses and purposeful businesses. So this next step that I took in 2010 and 2011 to reshape what we were doing from just being the Succeed on Purpose platform to truly cultivating business ideas and taking them forward was the next step. And the interesting thing about it, back to those three ideas, is I still had this feeling that there was something that I was missing. And the next big step that we took in 2012 is in the cultivator, we built this process that's now called the Conscious Business Growth Platform for how do you consistently cultivate businesses that work, conscious businesses, not just any business. And so we began the process, myself and my management team began the process of building what is now known as the Conscious Business Growth Platform to cultivate ideas. And then we literally started reimagining each of the businesses, starting first with Succeed, and then Ignite on Purpose was born shortly thereafter, and then Promote on Purpose was born shortly thereafter, and then Talent on Purpose was born shortly thereafter. And then, of course, the one that we launched this year, which is Shiftco, came as a result of a lot of those other businesses. And the reason why I wanted to share that journey with you is because I really do believe that conscious entrepreneurship is a big part about community. And I want to bring some folks together to talk about that because myself, I craved community. I had this amazing group of employees, many of whom are still with me today, who helped create the cultivation process called the Conscious Business Growth Platform. I've got leaders that run each of these brands that work for us. But I was craving community, and I just had this weird sensation that I didn't really fit anymore with traditional business and traditional networking, but I wasn't sure where I should go, and I felt very much alone. And so I went to one of my clients, Terri Freeman Parsons, who is head of the board of almost $1 billion business. That's a conscious business. And I was telling her these woes about, I just feel so much alone. And Carrie introduced me to Conscious Capitalism and John Mackey, who helped co-found that, and Raj Sisoda and a few others. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd found my peeps. The problem was that they were all large businesses. They were Tom's Shoes and Whole Foods and all, a Container Store. They were all amazing businesses. But I love being around entrepreneurs. Now, at the time, I didn't know this, but I now know that there are millions of conscious business owners around the globe, millions. And we just don't know that each other exists. And in many cases, I didn't know I was a conscious entrepreneur. Probably not until 2013 was I even able to put the words, I'm a conscious entrepreneur. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means to be a conscious entrepreneur. But it was really the awakening of sitting in that Conscious Capitalism big event, where as I was looking around the room, I'm like, these people are doing business differently. They're putting their employees first. They're putting sustainability first. They're trying to make conscious business choices that are certainly in line with making a profit, but that are really good for the people in their organizations. And I knew that there was something magical happening. The first guest that I would like to speak is somebody that I met very early in the journey with Shiftco. And she and several others really stood out to me because we launched Shiftco, we soft launched Shiftco on 2/20 right before COVID burst onto the scene in the United States. And as that happened, we all just pretty much pulled together and started working together. How are we going to pivot? What are we going to do? And there were just several people during that period that came together, and Leanne was one of them. So Leanne, I would love for you to talk a little bit about yourself and your business, and then specifically how community really does help business growth. So Leanne, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's just such an honor to be here. I love and absolutely embrace that concept of community. It is the fact that we are going to co-create this new world together. And all of us as conscious entrepreneurs know that we're at the threshold, right, of change. And my history, very much like yours, is for many years, I was unaware that I was actually a conscious business. I just was following that inner guidance that I needed to do it differently. I needed to do it my way, whatever that meant. And so that inner calling of how to show up for first myself differently, and then for my clients and everything that my business put out in the world, just started to expand. And when things like conscious capitalism became more of a known word, it is becoming more and more mainstream, which is wonderful. And just like us evolving as human beings, we're not going to do that in a vacuum. We're going to do that as a community. We're going to do that by looking at each other's strengths and seeing where we each align. So with my business, it's just me, and I build specific teams for each of my clients. So I'm always looking for that community, but each person needs to have that same alignment, have those same goals of being here for profit last and for people and planet first, and making sure that we're doing good in the world. And it's just been a total game changer, right? Like, work has become a joy. My clients have become like soul partners. It's shifted everything for me.
I love that. And I love the idea of being soul partners with your clients. I feel the same way. So thank you, Leanne, for being part of the community and contributing to the community. And there's something about growing with a community, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second when one of our other guests speaks about that. So kind of continuing on this story and building off of conscious capitalism. So I find this organization called Conscious Capitalism. I'm like, oh my God, these are my peeps, but unfortunately they're all large businesses. Where are all the entrepreneurs? And then I found B Lab and B Corp, and I found this whole other community that existed for companies of all sizes. And I absolutely love what they stand for. Sustainability Brands is also out there specifically for organizations that are trying to build sustainable businesses and services. Conscious Business Institute, Conscious Business Enterprise, I could go on and on. The Hive community is amazing. Small Giants, love them. And then on the investment side, since I also do a lot of investing, I found, lo and behold, that there are all of these organizations for investors that also want to make the world better. And this was fascinating to me. So I started sampling all of these different organizations. Now 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, I start building this network with this group of people in all of these different organizations who all have the same desire of let's make the world better as we're making money. And there's not an or there, that we can do both. And I began to build this amazing network through all of these different relationships where everybody was trying to focus on what is now known as the triple bottom line. And this book, which came out again during this period, somebody recently reminded me of this when she was talking about it. I was like, wait a minute, I've heard this before. And of course, I went over to my bookshelf. I have a whole bookshelf of conscious business books, and there it was. And again, this was a book before its time, and it really was about meaning matters. And the first thing is that conscious businesses put people first. And that is not always easy to do in business. We experienced that in 2018 and 2019. Our largest business took a nosedive, and we were doing everything we could to protect our people to our detriment. You know, I took on a lot of debt in order to do that. And then COVID happened. But conscious businesses, they make decisions related to people, whether the people are contractors. I had to negotiate debt with contractors. I mean, I had to do it all. And we all just held hands and worked together. It's amazing that it was such a team effort where we owed these vendors money, and we were going through this difficult period in 2018 and 2019. And we were just navigating it together through communication and open, transparent conversation. And hopefully in the next 3 months, the last few of those vendors will be paid off. But we all just had this same ethos of, you know, we're in it together. And even when COVID happened this year, and people tentatively, you know, said, hey, I've lost some business. How are you doing? I'm making those debt payments. And I'm like, I'll put you at the top of the list, you know, and it was this idea that we're going to work together. The second thing in this book is planet, is consumers are demanding eco-friendly choices. And I think that COVID is really driving this, where we are now aware that climate change is real, and that we really do have to work together. The fascinating thing is I missed this part of the book because I was gearing more towards meaning and still coming to grips with the fact that I could have both. I missed this part of the book, but as I went back and reflected on it, Eric Ries, who I absolutely love and have followed, he created something called the Lean Startup. He's the guy that created the word pivot. There's a great video of him talking about where he introduced that word. Eric has now created a new stock exchange called the Long-Term Stock Exchange to basically track companies that are conscious, in essence. And there's some fascinating research that's coming out of this in terms of those being a better investment. So this idea, which is now over a decade old, that meaning matters and the triple bottom line, is now real. Like, it's here. It's 2020. We're going into 2021. It's real. It's not a hope anymore. Like, you can see it. Now, what I have learned in this last decade, and this is really profound, is that conscious entrepreneurs are different. And they're different in about 5 different ways. I'm going to share with you 3 of them. The first thing is when a regular entrepreneur, which I was one, creates a product, just like I did with my first company in 2002, all I thought about was, will someone buy it? And when I started my first conscious business in 2008, 2009, which was Succeed on Purpose, my thinking was very different. I said, will it solve a problem? And I was focused more on the problem than on somebody buying it. Now, again, you can have both, but it's the intent. It's the original genesis of the idea. Will it solve a problem? And so if, as you've built your business, you think in terms of how am I going to solve problems for my target market, you're probably a conscious entrepreneur. Pricing. You know, again, I taught pricing at colleges, and it was basically, what's the market-based pricing and how can you extract more value? You know, an entrepreneur says, what will someone pay? A conscious entrepreneur says, how much is it worth? What's the value in it? Not that I want to give it away for free, not that I don't want to be profitable, but what's it actually worth? And they look at what the market is willing to bear very differently than a traditional entrepreneur. And then my favorite, because I had this epiphany as well, I used to chase success, and it was, how much money can I make? How much money can I make? If I invest in this business, how much money can I make? Now I don't. I look for business investments where I can make a difference. I can help the entrepreneur. I can help the team. I can bring a service or a product to market that the world needs. Yes, I want to make money, and I certainly look at an investment from, can I make money at it? But I want to make a difference. And so if these things resonate with you, it's probably because you're a conscious entrepreneur. Now, before I introduce a couple more of the guests, I want to also talk about another book that was game-changing for me called The Purpose Economy. And I started tracking Aaron Hurst very quickly when this came out. And some of the statistics that have resulted from some of his ongoing research of this idea that there will be a purpose economy, which I believe we are at the tipping point of. These are some of the recent statistics. 79% of leaders, this is from a PwC survey about 3 months ago, 79% of leaders, so that's 8 out of 10, believe that an organization's purpose is central to their success. When I started, that number was in the 20s. When I became a conscious entrepreneur 12 years ago, that was in the 20s. So that's fascinating. 8 out of 10 leaders in corporate America now believe that an organization's purpose, their why, is central to their success. One of the newest ones that just came out from the COVID crisis is purposeful companies outperform the whole stock market by 42%. So that statistic just came out, that purposeful companies do better in terms of shareholder value, which is fascinating. And then another study that came out last year that I always like to include is 79% of consumers say they're more loyal to purposeful brands. And I know this to be true, that the clients that I have where we're in it together, we go through the ups and downs together. We're in it, we're gonna hold hands. You know, we made a mistake, you know, hey, I'm really sorry about that. We could have done a better job. But there's a loyalty that is two-way when you're a conscious entrepreneur, where I'll give more grace to my clients because I know they're purposeful. They'll give more grace to me, but we're collaborating, that soul partner that Leanne talked about. Now, I want to bring in a couple of our guests, and to do that, I'm going to introduce my 3 things that conscious brands must do to grow, because we want you to grow your business. And there are 3 things that you've got to do, and I brought on some experts to share some wisdom around these 3 ideas. So I'm going to introduce the 3 ideas, and then I'll bring the experts in. The first one is purposeful businesses and leaders evolve as much as they grow. And if you remember back when I was talking about the first thing I was struggling with is growing the business wasn't the same. It was different. Like I couldn't strategize it to death. I couldn't plan it to death. I couldn't, you know, all of the things that I used to do to grow businesses. And I've been part of entrepreneurial teams that have taken companies public, and those things work. The go-to-market strategies and the way that we executed and the financial plans, they work. But for whatever reason, in conscious businesses, it doesn't work that way. And I brought in an expert here in a minute to share with you some experience from that standpoint. The second one is that you really have to implement authentic marketing and leadership practices. Like you can't fake it till you make it. You know, we're all trying to be better, but you can't fake it. You can't, you know, you've got to like really figure out what's authentic. What does authentic leadership mean to you? It doesn't mean the same thing to you as it does to someone else. What does authentic marketing mean to you? And you've got to stand by that, almost like it's principle based rather than strategy or technique based, which again, as a person who's got decades of marketing and business growth experience, that was an odd thing for me. And again, I brought an expert on to talk about that. And then the third thing is collaborate versus compete, that we really are stronger together. And we've done that in Shiftco. We bring people together that have similar businesses, and we work on how can we grow together. So I brought an expert to talk to you about that. So I'm going to introduce the first one. She's actually she's on the board of directors for Shiftco. She's truly one of the gems behind the scene. Most of our Shiftco members don't even know that she exists yet, because she's truly, you know, behind the scenes making things work. But when I thought about putting our board together, she was at the top of the list. She is truly one of my most admired leaders. She's a tech entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, conscious investor. And when our paths crossed 4 years ago or so, I could tell that she was different, and I now not only count her as the leader of the Shiftco board, but also as a friend. So Elizabeth, I'd love to have you talk a little bit about this idea of evolving as much as we grow.
Unmute myself there. It's humbling. This is a phenomenal presentation already, and I'm just honored to be talking with everybody today. But I'm grateful to really realize that I didn't realize as a conscious business either, And I basically spent years in corporate America, and about 20 years ago left and joined my first startup. And I guess my entrepreneurship began there, and it's been an evolution ever since. And I think what happened to me, and I see this happening to a lot of companies that we serve that are both, they all have a purpose of some sort, but it starts with a sense of purpose. And you can grow a business that has a sense of purpose, but you might get bigger, but are you really having the impact you want? And as Terri was mentioning before, does it really fulfill that, your own purpose in life, and make you happy and passionate and make you get up out of bed every day? And I think what I discovered along the way is that, you know, following your purpose is an evolution. It's really a process of discovery. And when you start a business as an entrepreneur, you have an idea, but you don't necessarily know it's going to work. And just the fact that you're you know, have a sense of purpose doesn't mean that you have a winning formula that will help people. And that's at the end of the day, you know, a conscious entrepreneur is all about serving in some way. And so I think one of the first things in terms of evolution was I had a sense of an idea, but I had to get crystal clear on my purpose and who and how I wanted to serve. And that whole examination really led to a lot of insights and evolutions. And some of the methodologies that Terri was talking about, I participated in and learned a lot about myself and about my purpose and how to get crystal clear about who I wanted to serve and how I wanted to serve them. And as Terri was mentioning, purposeful brands actually need a lot of the same business disciplines as any business. No matter how well-intended your service or product is, you still have to make sure people know about it. You have to have a clear value proposition. You have to be differentiated, which can also include your conscious, you know, orientation, your purposeful orientation. You need to understand your target market, demand generation versus selling, which is a big differentiator, I think, in conscious businesses. And just really understanding how to measure, you know, how successful you're being, not only in terms of financially, because obviously you need to have a financial foundation to have a successful business, but also in terms of impact. And it's measuring both of those things. And so when I think about all these practices that any sound business needs to practice, it's, you know, doing all these things leads to an evolution in thinking. And all these things are done in the context of a conscious brand. And I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about Shiftco, is that as Shiftco's evolved, it's really been founded on that conscious business platform, a methodology that helps people evolve and to build and scale a purpose-driven brand, a business. And that, again, it's about impact as well as establishing a sound financial impact so you can serve more, so you can have a greater impact rather than a small impact. And so I think that the other thing I really liked about the Conscious Business Growth Platform is it's geared to the stage of your business. As Terri was saying before about really big businesses, there's a lot you can learn from them, but it's hard to translate that into something to a 5-person business or a 20-person business or even a solopreneurship, you know, or a consulting practice versus a big product manufacturer. And so I like the fact that Shiftco's thought about serving all sizes of conscious businesses and always coming at it from that context. And there's courses and individual and group coaching. And, you know, really to end my thoughts, it's really that community that both Terri and Leanne were talking about that's so powerful too, because there's other like-minded people that are all also building businesses that you can learn from, partner with, and everybody can move ahead together in that evolutionary process of figuring out a great purposeful business and way to serve your market.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, because I have learned so much from watching you grow Results Resourcing and partnering with you. And I think your words definitely ring true. And segueing to that, the second thing that I learned the hard way, I always say that authentic demand generation for me was really just a lesson of how not to grow a business, because I failed so bad when I first started Succeed on Purpose in 2008 and 2009. And when I met Michelle Baker, Michelle's one of our coaches at Shiftco, she just like got it, you know, she was just doing authentic demand generation and she was just being it. And so I was really excited when she joined the team as a coach. So Michelle, what are some of your lessons about what it means to grow a conscious business using authentic marketing and leadership practices?
Well, I'm going to mirror what Elizabeth said. This presentation has been absolutely incredible. And I love the fact that when you're with conscious people, you learn. We're constantly in a phase of learning more and more and more. So thank you for having me here. One of the biggest thing I learned was that interpersonal conversation, the intrapersonal, is how I begin to have right? So business is a matter of talking to the people that matter the most and the people who want the programs and the offerings that I have, and being able to influence them to say yes to what I know they already want. Well, if I'm not influencing myself first, then I can't influence them. So one of the things that I tell, the belief that you are enough, that you actually have this gift that has been diluted many times by the time we make it to the Shiftco community. Many of us have been in other programs and trainings and all types of things that have us dial it down or speak at a lower volume, or maybe that's just the nature of who we are. But giving you that platform and being able to speak clearly so that the people who need what you have can hear you over the noise that's in the marketplace, and connecting with them. First, as Elizabeth mentioned, first getting clear on who that is, and then talking to them the way that they need to hear. So I always say belief that builds a business. It's what draws them into you, and what keeps them there, and what turns them into your loyal raving fans. And you don't work as hard because they actually will tell people about you, as you mentioned, Terri, even before they buy. Sometimes they're so excited about the opportunity. I always say it's the difference between working with someone you love, who loves what they're doing, versus someone who's just good at what they're doing. And I find that conscious business owners love what they're doing, and they pass that love on to how they deliver and do service with their the people they work with. And then I always say imagination. And so it empowers us to implement. Many times as a conscious entrepreneur, that interpersonal conversation, when something gets hard, we start to think it's hard. I can't do this. I don't know enough. I'm not good enough. And beginning to have that conversation inside about you are, again, worthy. You're more capable than you know, and your client needs you. Like, what can I do right now in this moment? What one thing can I do to move myself forward? So beginning to use the imagination and getting out of the box, or it has to be this, or it has to be that, or it has to be anything. What can it be? What can I create in this moment? How can I really go big and step into something that's going to truly light me up and challenge me to step into something bigger and better for myself there, and thereby deliver that to my clients? And then the final thing I would remind people is gratitude. So gratitude is that ability to really have grace for the journey, to be grateful for learning, right? I always say success and failure are Siamese twins. Anybody you look at who's on a podium, who's talking about how amazing they are, has, like, if you look at their back, it's like scarred up. They have fell down and got up, and fell down and got up, and fell down and got up. So the willingness to fall is the gift. The willingness to know that failure is only final when you quit. Get up and find, and just embrace it as something that, well, either I learn how to do it better, or that's something I don't necessarily like, or take a route. There's an infinite number of ways that we can get there. So it's that intrapersonal conversation that you have with yourself that then, once you're able to do that well, that we learn here at the Shiftco community, and the community supports you in having better conversations with yourself, because we really give you an authentic space of where to talk about the things that are holding us back, or, you know, where we may be having some self-limiting beliefs. Then go out and have better conversations with those ideal clients that light us up, and be that conscious gift to the world, and really change how humanity and how the world is doing business. So it's been an absolutely incredible experience. And the fact that, I will say, in my experience here, I have stepped in doing way more than I even thought capable, because the community fosters that. The energy, the energetic inspiration that comes from just being a part of this community just really starts to dial you up to what the world needs from you, and the gift that you are.
Yeah, and you're one of those people that I think dials people up. And you know, one of the things that I want to just tie together in terms of business growth that, Michelle, you do naturally, is you're just you, and then you focus on the relationship, not the purchase, right? And that idea of just being yourself, just, you know, what warts and all, this is what it, oh, messed up at that, or oh, I can do better at that. You just are yourself, and then you focus on the relationship. So how has that focusing on the relationship translated into how you're growing your business? Because you do this very naturally.
Well, focusing on the relationship and not on myself, what it allows me to do is to understand that, to think about them and hear them and really hear what they're wanting, and actually recognize, again, going back to the fact that I have this unique, authentic gift, they want the gift. So how can I answer them in a way that they need to hear, and that says, so that they say yes to them. And so I'm not trying to hear them so I can just plug in an offer or a product or a pitch. I'm actually hearing them so that I can then say yes, and many times get to co-create. Sometimes it's not even about something that I actually have, but the opportunity to do something unique and different, or edit or modify something I currently exist and have, so it speaks to them and it delivers something to them. So it's that willingness to know that they are a gift to me just as much as I am the gift to them, and that we get to do this journey together of doing business.
I love that. Kind of back to that soul creator, that co-creator that Leanne talked about. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being a coach in Shiftco and sharing your wisdom with us. Very, very much appreciated. And going from Austin over to my hometown of Tampa, when I saw Mark come up, because every time a new member joins Shiftco, I always look at the map, where are they from? I'm like, oh my God, someone's from Tampa, my hometown, you know. And as I've gotten to know him, he's got an amazing product set and just a vision that's amazing. So Mark, tell us a little bit about the philosophy of collaborating versus competing. Mark, are you there?
I am unmuted. I just finished the whole presentation while I was muted. But I think one of the things when I left higher education was this idea that I was a lone wolf. You know, I saw other endeavors and it wasn't the same thing. And one of the great things about when I learned about conscious entrepreneurship was that there are a lot of people to collaborate with. And when it comes to my work in the Joy Revolution, I'm allowed to use positive psychology, personal growth, in addition to revolution theory, which is making a positive impact on the community. And when it comes to collaborations, what I've learned is I can still be myself. I don't have to change who I am in the collaboration. The second thing I learned in collaborations was that it's more than a win-win. It's an exponential win-win. So for example, I'm working this go around with the Joy Revolution with someone who has a gateless style of writing. This is very similar to positive psychology. And what we're finding is, you know, for example, we wrote down for our first workshop, we want 50 people in. 300 people registered when we just put our stuff together. So that's what we think about with win-wins. And there's people from the Joy Revolution going over to her programs and all these great things happening. And there is no feeling of competition. You know, it's almost like a school bus. You go to one stop and drop people off, and then people get picked up and they keep going on their journey. I don't have to go from, you know, I don't have to stay with people for long periods of time. And other people can bring out their strengths and move them to the next level of consciousness. And then finally is the ease of delivery. This idea that, this hustle culture. And when you're in a collaboration, there's this trust that I have in the person that I'm collaborating with right now. And she'll handle it on Tuesdays. I used to handle it twice a week, but I'd handle it. Now I only have to do Friday work. She does Tuesday work. And what I really love about Shiftco is that you just kind of log in and it's like fish in a barrel. It's like, who do I want to collaborate with? There's so many folks. And so I think that's a much different thing, this idea of competition. versus collaboration. And I think for those who are already in the collaboration mindset, I mean, Shiftco is a great place to find other co-collaborators.
Fish in a barrel. I love that too. I heard that too. That's a very famous saying in Florida. So I don't know if you picked that up, Mark, but fish in a barrel is, that's where you grow up when you fish, for food type of thing. So, and you are a natural.
I have a bottle of fish down here, a whole barrel of fish.
I know. And you're a natural collaborator, and I know you only joined Shiftco about 3 months ago, but I encourage a lot of our other leaders to get to know you because you're a natural collaborator and you've really got something special. There's a spark in your business that, and a life in your business and an energy in your business that's really special. So I'm glad that you can share some of that wisdom with us.
Thank you.
So as you think about those tips that you heard, it really is 3 things. Your business is going to evolve as much as it will grow, and you will evolve. I frequently say that those of us together in Shiftco that are on this journey, we're helping each other heal, and we're helping each other grow, and we're helping each other grow each other's businesses. So that aspect is key. And I frequently am a student, when somebody's work, wellness is my big focus for the year. And, I'm all ears, I'm all in. Secondly is authentic marketing really does matter. You can't find conscious buyers in old traditional spammy ways. You've really got to use authentic marketing. And then third is collaboration makes it so much easier. And what I'll do just briefly is just share a little bit about what Shiftco is and answer any questions that you have. I'll start first with this mantra that really came to me last month about growth. And I really do believe that growth is part know-how. You need to learn from people that know how to grow a conscious business. And we've got that in spades. You heard that today. But it's also a function of want to. You need to want to grow your business and you need to want to do that. But the thing that I really now understand is in addition to know-how plus want to, it's also part of we too, that it is so much easier to grow together because we're referring each other businesses, we're introducing each other to each other, we're promoting, the special sauce that we each have. In many cases, our businesses overlap. We don't care. We just know that we're stronger together. And as you think about that, and you look at any of the testimonies for Shiftco, you're going to hear those 3 things: know how, want to, and we too. That we know how to do it and the platform works, that we really create this energy of wanting to be better. Like when I'm working with shifters, or the shift community as we like to call them, I want to be better as a leader. And then this idea that we too can make the world better. And that's the beauty of Shiftco, is we're not just trying to single-handedly make an impact. We're making a collective impact together as a team. So I really do believe that growth is know-how plus want to plus we too. And then the platform is, as Mark pointed out, Shift Connect is the basis. So that's how it works. It's kind of like this giant hub, and you access everything through Shift Connect, and your learning modules are in there. The happy hours that people lead are in there. And you can see all of the members from around the globe. We've got about 230 members today, and we officially launched a couple months ago. And then the online learning pathways, there are 3 pathways. So business fuel is where you're going to get the business know-how. And then leadership and personal fuel is how you're going to really get the want to. How do you get fear out of the way? How do you get uncertainty out of the way? How do you develop the winning mindset? How do you evolve your consciousness as a leader so that you're leading more effectively? How do you communicate more effectively? How do you listen? So all 3 pathways work together, and all of the content is included in the membership. So you don't buy this program or that program. You basically have access to whatever you need to evolve yourself and your business to the next level. And then the last thing that I'll say is we have individualized growth plans and paths for each member, which is very unique. So when you join Shiftco, you get a mentor first, and the mentor has used Shiftco to grow, and they're going to help you figure out what path you should be on. Of all of the paths, there are about 50 different pathways, which is the one that you need to grow. And then you'll get a set of online learning modules customized to you, for you to learn what you need. And then you'll get a coach that helps you apply the content. We just finished training now 5 coaches, all of whom have used the platform to grow their business. So they're going to help you apply it to your business. And then the community, there's nothing like the community. It's amazing. And then the last thing is the Conscious Business Growth Platform that it's based on. This works, and it really is the unique piece of how do you go from A to B. And then you just basically take a map, and you can see the membership pricing in there if you are interested. So each map that you take is the map of how you go from point A to point B. So if you're in launch and you're under $10,000 a month and you want to go to shape, you're going to go on map A, and there are 14 different pathways on map A. And you'll pay $195 a month, no long-term contract, and basically you're going to go from launch to shape. And typically we go from launch to shape in 6 to 18 months, depending on where your business is. And then for the folks that are in Build and Evolve, map B, there's more coaching involved in map B, about 20 different pathways in map B, and then about 18 pathways in map C. Again, more one-on-one coaching at that higher level. So that's why the per month charge is a little bit higher. But that's how it works in a nutshell, is you pay a membership fee, you get everything that you need, a mentor, a coach, the training to help you go from where you are to where you want to be. And what you're working on is customized to your business. So everybody's not learning the same thing, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So if you're not part of Shiftco and you're just being exposed to us, we'd love to have you grow with us. I want to thank the experts that spoke today. They inspire me frequently. I want to thank the Shift community for how you've enriched my life, and how you've really helped us co-create Shiftco. I mean, we really do feel that way. We're constantly listening to you and watching you and learning from you. So thanks for all of you that are part of Shiftco already, for joining us. And for those of you that are just now hearing about Shiftco, we'd love to have you join us too. Are there any questions before we wrap up? And then I'm just going to end with a quick little story. Any questions for the experts or about Shiftco or for me before I end with just a little story? Excellent. Well, I'm going to just end with a quick story. So I grew up extremely poor and abused in every way possible, but I had this angel in my life. It was my grandfather, and I always get choked up whenever I tell this story. And one of the lessons that he taught me is that you get what you focus on. And at a very young age, I was focused on the trauma that I was experiencing, and he knew he couldn't do anything about the trauma because his son was responsible, my dad, was responsible for a lot of the trauma. And he knew that it was happening, but he didn't feel like he could do anything about it. But he wanted to love me and support me and teach me how to overcome the trauma and now how not just to survive, but thrive. So he taught me this lesson in my about 6th, 7th, 8th grade. You get what you focus on. And he taught me how to focus on where I wanted to go, not where I was. And it was a lesson that was a game changer for me. But the best part about what he taught me is when he passed away, I was 28 when he passed away, and I flew home to Bradenton. So this is near Tampa. And it was very tenuous because I still had not forgiven my family for the things that I had gone through. So we're all together and we're kind of going through Grandpa's things. And you can tell I'm getting choked up whenever I tell this story. And my mom handed me this box and she said, "Hey, your Gramps left this for you." And there's a note in it. And it was like a note wrapped around this box. And the box had my grandmother's ring in it. My grandmother died when I was about 5 years old, and my grandmother was the love of his life. Although he remarried, she was the love of his life. And he said, "I want you to have this ring." And then he talked about how life is a circle. And he said, "I've taught you many things." And so many of my quotes came from him, and he had them written out. You get what you focus on. And, profit is the tip your customers give you when you serve them well. And all these amazing lessons. And then the card just kind of said, "but," really big. And he had a sense of humor. He said, "There's one more lesson that I have to teach you." And I turned the card over and he said, you get what you focus on, but you also get what you give. And that idea of building a business where you're focused on how we can work together and where you're focused on how you can give and help your community and your customers and the various circles that we run in, how you can make them better. That's the power of conscious entrepreneurship. So if you didn't know you were a conscious entrepreneur and you're hearing these things today and it's resonating with you, you get what you focus on and you get what you give. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you to all of our shifters for being a part of the community. Thanks guys.